Welcome back to the Elias Macko Show and our third hour of the program. Now, Donald Trump has signed the Genius Act, creating the first U.S. regulatory framework for stablecoins. Now, stablecoins, I'm being told, are cryptocurrencies pegged to the U.S. dollar. This law requires stablecoins to be backed by liquid assets and calls for monthly public disclosures, aiming to boost trust and mainstream use of digital payments. The move marks a major victory for the crypto industry, which hopes this will expand adoption and strengthen the dollar's role globally. Let's go to Brady Dale. He's a cryptocurrency reporter, and he's on the line. Brady, welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Now, you may have caught this in my introduction. I may have said what stable coins are. I still don't understand it. So I'm going to ask you to explain to me and our listeners on an even simpler term. Stable coins, which are cryptocurrencies pegged to the U.S. dollar. Tell our listeners why that is so interesting, important, and what exactly we're talking about.
So it's a way of having an on-chain asset that won't be super volatile. You know, if your listeners have heard anything about cryptocurrencies, they've heard that they're wildly volatile, that the price just changes all the time. Well, stablecoins don't. And so what that meant early on is they were a great way for crypto traders to close out a position and know what they actually had. So if you made a little money on some, random coin you made a bet on and it worked out, you could trade it into stable coins and you would know how much money you really had. So that was the use case for a long time. But it turns out that they're really great for moving money overseas really quickly, settling instantly. It's really great for lowering the cost of big transactions or even small transactions. So they've turned out to have a lot more use cases. And so they're catching on all around the world, and folks think they could catch on in the U.S. too.
So, that definitely puts into focus the stable part of stable coins. So I really do appreciate that. Why is it such a big win for the cryptocurrency industry?
Well, this is the first law that has ever been signed by a president that relates to blockchain assets at all in the U.S. I mean, this is the first new law. We don't pass a lot of new laws in the U.S. anymore. We just fight over the budget endlessly. So it's a big deal that this happened. The industry has been saying it wants regulatory clarity. It wants updated laws and rules that allow it to exist. And this does that. And what it's going to mean is a bunch of banks, for example, that have been sitting on the sideline. They understand the technology, but they don't have a clear legal green light to do it. Now they have a green light to do it, so they can start playing around with it too.
I should point this out, so Donald Trump signing this into law, it did receive, as many people describe, broad bipartisan support. So nearly half of Democratic members voted for this bill in the House, most Republicans. It's been approved, of course, by the U.S. Senate. So there seems to be, from both sides of the aisle, broad support here. Well, why do you think that is?
I guess I shouldn't editorialize as a journalist. I think stablecoins are a pretty good idea too. They have a lot of use cases. A lot of businesses are finding them useful. If you're a multinational company, you've got businesses in a bunch of countries. Stablecoins are an easy way to move value between them really quickly. Called treasury management. It's an easy way. Say you're a tech company and you're paying some developers who live overseas. Maybe they live in Eastern Europe. Maybe they don't have great banking services there. You can pay them in stable coins. It goes really fast. So there's just a lot of uses for them. And I think, legislators who figured this technology out kind of think stable coins, might have questions with the rest of the industry, but this is sort of a no-brainer.
So I'm surprised there because I would think in my mind, it's government would have a problem with people being able to very easily and quickly transfer money overseas, right? And I'm just thinking about, maybe it's for a legitimate use for paying someone and for investments, but it seems like for organized crime, they'd love this as well, right? So explain to me why, in this case, you've got government saying, no, this is great that we're going to allow an easier way to move money across the globe.
Yeah, this is the endless tension with new technology. I mean, the reality is just everything that's useful to people is useful to criminals, and so this is just the thing that we all have to accept. You and I use roads to get to and from things we'd like to do, but bank robbers use them to run away from the cops. We like duct tape for fixing our house, but kidnappers use duct tape too. So it's just this is just the reality. Things that are useful are going to be useful by all kinds of folks.
We're with Brady Dale. He's a cryptocurrency reporter, and he's telling us about why the Genius Act, which was signed into law by Donald Trump, is so important. So let me ask you this, because, I've heard from a lot of the quote unquote tech bros, and boy, do they seem to hate regulation. And boy, do they throw shade at Europe for being overregulated. And here I see some support where I'm like, well, why would they be happy about the U.S. government saying, "Hey, we're going to regulate this. We're going to encapsulate this into law"? Tell me about the advantages there and why in the tech community there's so much support.
Well, I think the crypto industry is getting tired of existing in this gray area, and what they found under the Biden administration is when the laws aren't clear, if bureaucrats or politicians decide they don't like a sector, they have all these ways to go after them and to slow them down and hurt them. And so that happened a lot over the last 4 years or even slightly longer. And so I think the thinking is if they have some clear rules that they can follow, then it's harder to attack the industry, especially the ones who are trying to be, good faith operators in the economy.
Why is this good for the U.S. dollar? I saw U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent talking about that. This is a good thing for the U.S. dollar. Tell me why.
Well, so like I said, stablecoins, even without regulatory clarity, there's already $260 billion of them committed. Tether, which is the world's biggest stablecoin, controversial company, but a thing that they like to say all the time is that they've been setting up a network of bodegas all over Africa, all over the Middle East, places that have shaky currencies. Folks are now using Tether in those places to make local transactions. Everywhere the dollar is, U.S. soft power is. And the more people are using the dollar, the harder it is to knock the dollar out of its place as the lingua franca of global trade. And so stablecoins are a new way of using the dollar globally, and it's really catching on. And Scott Bessent is seeing that and saying, okay, this is a way of extending the reach of the dollar. And I, as Treasury Secretary, I like that.
In this bill, do the stablecoins have to be pegged to the U.S. dollar? Because I'm thinking, well, if you can do it for the U.S. dollar, why not the euro or the Canadian dollar or the British pound?
Well, this bill only deals with dollars because it's about what's legal in the U.S. You can do it for other cryptocurrencies, and it has been done. It hasn't really caught on. There are euro cryptocurrencies, but the truth is the global crypto market just kind of seems to want dollars. That could change over time, but yeah, I think for the legal frameworks for those other cryptocurrencies, it'll need to be done in the countries where those cryptocurrencies are native.
I got to ask you, wrap up here, why are there so many of these stable coins? Because I'm thinking in my mind, okay, once you've created one cryptocurrency that's a stable coin, it's pegged to the U.S. dollar. Why do you need a ton of them? Wouldn't we just end up with one de facto option that's pegged to the U.S. dollar and everyone uses that one?
This gets into the realm of where you start to really have your eyes bleed in terms of how weird money really is. I mean, the truth is, the dollars or the Canadian dollars you're all using now kind of are sort of their own weird stable coin, and they're mostly issued by banks. It's just that because they all accept each other's dollars, everyone just calls them, they don't call them Bank of America dollars. They don't call them Citibank dollars. They just call them dollars. But that kind of is, they are really kind of Bank of America dollars. They are really kind of Citibank dollars. So the truth is probably we'll get to a point where people will just refer to them as, kind of blockchain dollars, and it'll all sort of be the same. But we're in an early phase where that's all getting figured out. And the truth is there's really only two that actually matter. I mean, there's a bunch of them, but it's really just so far, it's just tethers and circles that really matter. They're kind of the Coke and Pepsi. And the rest of them are just sort of trying for market share, but haven't really gotten there yet.
Tether and Circle. That's what you said there?
Yeah, Tether and Circle. So Circle is a U.S.-based company, and then Tether is the biggest stable coin, and they're based out of El Salvador. They kind of started the whole party rolling.
All right, Brady, listen, I don't want to make anyone's eyes bleed. You said eyes, right? Eyes bleed?
Yeah, or maybe their brain crack. I don't know. Money is very weird. It is very weird.
But it's also fascinating. I think we did a decent job over the last 8 minutes or so. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Brady.
Thanks for having me.
That's Brady Dale, cryptocurrency reporter.